Console Atelier isn't dead, with Atelier Yumiya set to come next year, so with the localization something to compare to and the passing of a year, my own Atelier Resleriana thoughts have definitely evolved. I've been on an entire journey with this game, with feelings ranging from obsession to frustration in different parts of my time with it. I've experienced Atelier Heaven with it, enjoying new scenarios with many characters I love from the whole series, but I've also been met with gacha game hell trying to keep up, with me having to put rules on my playtime with it that have increased my enjoyment, but is something I've never had to do on console. At its year anniversary and post feelings of relief when Atelier Yumiya was announced, I've had more Resleriana thoughts than will probably make its way into this video for better or worse, but one look at Console Atelier shows that this game and its characters perhaps could have shined even brighter on Atelier's main home on consoles too, as in Resleriana, great characters and ideas are sandwiched between FOMO and gacha unit needs to make for a less smooth Atelier experience, even if it tells a good story. One of the things that made me so happy about Resleriana was the way it married Atelier characters old and new into warm story moments together, a sentiment I was still very much riding when it made its way to the West in January. The mistake I fell into was thinking I could somehow keep up with all its extra content when I've never been able to do that with any other smartphone game, but my love of Atelier propelled me as hard as a kicked pony when the thing that made me remember why I loved it so much in the first place was getting back to basics by only focusing my time on story again recently. Since its first 3 chapters, Resleriana has come a long way, giving all its main characters arcs having its own first 11 chapter long first part end and a second one begin, with all of them still spun with different Atelier character features, ranging from more well-known ones like Riser and crew to a bunch of spotlight given to mysterious Dusk and Arlen trilogy characters that will no doubt excite fans of the series. It never gets old seeing a character you've loved before getting a main story role, and those that don't often appear in timed events that gives you chances to see everyone navigate this new world, often in fancy costumes. My feelings for this side of Resleriana really hasn't changed. I still love Resna and Valeria and have enjoyed watching their story evolve, especially as the plot has thickened with interesting and formidable foes with great designs, and the fact the world does have its own politics and issues revolving around the use of alchemy, as Resna tries to use it for good, unlike others. And of course the localization has more than helped with this, with Gust's recent localization quality not slipping at all. At best, it delivers the Japanese script in English that feels fun to read, and at worst can feel stiff in some lines as it occasionally prioritizes giving nuance over a perfectly natural line. I don't mind, as I've loved how playing in English has given me a bunch of nuance versus what I've played in the Japanese version, and that we're only about 4 chapters behind with regular content coming, making it easy for a story fan like myself to have faith that we'll get all of it eventually and keep busy in the meantime. Since not everyone is into service games, it's at times almost a shame that this lovely group of characters and relationships is locked in this kind of game that less fans are inclined to play. If you can't stomach the actual app, even if you just focus on the story, I would at least encourage having a look at some of the chapters on YouTube, as if you like Gust stories, I think this one is up to their quality standards, with only one event dipping in quality in its life cycle so far. Koei Tecmo will be the sole managers of it going forward, with their opening partnership with Akatsuki Games finished about a month ago, and while they weren't clear on what that means, I hope it means that they oversee it and keep it good for the duration, as this part of Resleriana and the story writing itself is still as good as it's always been. The story of Resleriana is still able to shine through enough of the issues I have with it to keep it still in my good books, but that doesn't mean I don't have issues with it, and my issues have become so strong that I had to completely change the way I play. I noticed in my Steam accounts recently that I have put multiple hundreds of hours into both servers, which doesn't include my smartphone time, and until recently, that was with me only midway through chapter 9 on the Japanese server, for good reason. Atelier Resleriana and almost every smartphone game similar have a ton of extra events to do on a weekly basis, and dailies too. Some of these events just require a quick smashing out, others become part of the daily pile, as if you don't do them, you could miss out on those materials for a while until they come back, and since it's up to Koei Tecmo's discretion if they want to archive events or not, which they have started doing recently, I always and still feel like I need to do them before the event is done if I want to get as much as I can out of my res time as possible. This would be a certain level of time consuming if it was just story events that could take maybe an hour or two a week, which is still a bit of time, but it came overwhelming with X challenges and Roman's Grand tournaments that led me to feeling like I was also getting strong enough to finish other dungeons and secret quests that took even more time, and the next thing I knew, I wasn't spending my finite weekend time on playing story from any games, let alone Resleriana. I was basically spending it looting just to feel up to date, which is actually pretty funny, as in normal circumstances, I wouldn't care about grinding for resources just in case. I would need some kind of purpose. Somehow, Atelier Yumiya's announcement and how beautiful it looked to run around in give me the shake I needed. I love a turn-based Trails-like battle system as much as anyone, especially combined with Atelier, but I also love console games and the fact that those games have an end to them. The never-ending onslaught of content for Res made it feel like if I wanted to keep up with it, I had to only keep up with it, and seeing Yumiya made me realize I would get more value out of Yumiya, more value out of getting the endings of other Ateliers that have more depth in synthesis and exploration, and while I initially thought they did okay with these systems for service games with systems that work smarter not harder, it takes one look at Raizo or even Yumiya's upcoming system to see Atelier is capable of so much more. While these systems were fun at launch, I guess I've learned when judging a service game, or frankly any game, you have to think about how they'll feel hundreds of hours later. I know if I hadn't fallen out of the rhythm of Raizo's system, I'd still enjoy it, and I enjoyed it over 3 games. Resleriana I still enjoy the combat of, but Synthesis I use the simple synthesis function as it's so much quicker in its sea of content, and Yubet I use the swift function for dailies and all quests once I need to play them a second time for materials or orbs. In practice, it turns into a lot of menu pressing that is surprisingly time consuming once you throw in load times, and redeeming every little mission reward every time you do something before they expire, and that's without getting near story, which may not let you finish it either. In my final story sprint to make this video with as much res in my head as possible, I still couldn't get past chapter 13 on the English server, and probably not on the Japanese one either. A dungeon I need to complete to get a recipe to progress is too hard for my max level party, I suspect because I don't have 2 characters from that chapter's banner, which isn't great from a free-to-play perspective, and I even use the paid daily pass, so that's with a small boost that was to help level up my characters and then now maxed out growth boards. With the party I put together getting snuffed out on the last dungeon boss, I have to slowly gather pieces day by day to rank them up to 5 stars, which are capped at 9 a day, and I need 150 to 500 each. Or I need to get super lucky in the gacha, which thankfully has everyone permanent, but still has me needing either luck or a bunch of tokens that won't see me finishing it soon. Maybe I'll be able to do it in JP, as their level cap is 10 levels above the West now, but even the new lowerable difficulty for the main story doesn't cover the extra dungeons that are sometimes required to finish, so I can understand why I've heard people getting stuck, and I suspect I won't pass this one at least until the next chapter is out. It's a shame as the story is so good, but I guess by design FOMO elements are part of keeping these games alive, whether it be with money or an active user base. I've made the decision that personally I'm done with that side of it to save the rest of my gaming time and only into the story, at least when it lets me progress, and I hope that can keep me enjoying the side of it I like as it continues. With the constant spiral of new content and events, I feel like I've been to hell and back with my Resleriana time this year, and it also helped getting slightly reduced hours for my full-time job this year to make me realize it wasn't in fact the amount of time I had put into Res that was my problem with it, it was the actual service gameness itself, really clarified for how excited and relieved I felt to see Atelier Yumiya. I don't have any plans to drop Resleriana though, as I can never drop a mainline Atelier story, especially one I actually think is well written, but I've been taking steps to redefine my Resleriana time and thought I'd mention it here in case it helps anyone else who's stuck in the loop. One thing I've noticed on the English side of things is their potential response to people complaining about a lack of free stuff is to make extra events that aren't in the Japanese side of things to keep you in even longer. These events, alongside any extra ones like Roman's Grand Tournament and all the dungeons or score battles, I've put on a no focus time basis, meaning I only play them on auto battle by my side when I'm working, if at all. I'm not gonna worry about finishing them on time, they're mostly just recycled monsters anyway, and while the combat is fun, a lot of the harder challenges really are harder without the current gacha units, so as much as I like earning emblems to be stronger overall, I need to not worry about this and only focus on what I like, which is the story. If you play it as just a story game, Resleriana really only demands an hour or two every couple of weeks, and that's the absolute most I'm willing to give it these days, so that works for me. I'm not going to bother punching my way through if I don't have gacha units though. Once adjustable difficulty comes comes west, I'm going to be putting down my story difficulty 1 for every gacha unit I don't have, and if that doesn't get me through, I'll wait until the next chapter to try again, as there might be some items and events in between or a level cap break that can help me on the way. I will be playing events, but again, just for the story and recipes, and if I can stick to that, I think I can play in a way that keeps me in like with this game. In the end, I still enjoy Resleriana, but I think its service gaminess will stop it from ever being my favorite Atelier game, as much as I really love Resna and Valeria and the rest of the great group of characters in this new Atelier family. I hope they pop up in other Atelier games in future as DLC so console fans can meet them too, and I honestly also hope Yumiya herself joins the Atelier characters in Resleriana in a respectful way too. Most of all though, I think it's clear that the Atelier series shines brightest on consoles, and that makes sense for this mostly console series. Atelier Resleriana has a great story for the service game it is. A lot of effort has been put into its cinematics, its character designs and costumes, and there's plenty of fan service for the Atelier fan who wants to spend time with their favorites on a day-to-day basis. But unlike console Atelier, if you're a completionist, it can suffer from the fact that there's no end in sight. I learned a lot about myself as a service game player during this, and showed me why I've had to put most of these games on the back burner for myself, as they really can take a decent chunk of time from the right person, let alone money, so I truly hope people are keeping tame with it. I'll be praying for an offline one-time payment version someday on Switch. Would be nice for everyone to see the story, but I'm also glad Gus kept true to their quality standards that hopefully see the cinematic lessons learned here in Ateliers going forward, and I'll be following the stars with Resna and Valeria until then and however long beyond, but in a much more mindful and passive way. Thank you for watching this video. Let me know in the comments below what your current thoughts on Resleriana are and how you feel about JRPGs on smartphones. You can like and share this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to my channel for more JRPG content like this, and ring that bell to get notifications on whenever I post so you don't miss a thing. You can check out more videos here, and you can find me on social media on X, Facebook, and Instagram, all at JRPG Jungle. Links to those will be in the description below, and until next time, thank you, bye!